How do you get your payroll protection loan forgiven? We're going to talk about this in this video because earlier this month a bunch of changes came out that have made some significant modifications for how your loan can be forgiven. Now that's actually going to be good news for a lot of you. It's much easier to get your loan forgiven now than it was when this program was originally created by the CARES Act. Now if you're an independent contractor, which most of my viewers are, I've got some really good news for you that's going to make loan forgiveness extremely easy. Before I hit on that, I want to make sure I cover all the basics here for everyone. So the first major change was the actual threshold that you have to spend on payroll. Originally, when the payroll protection loan program was created, you had to spend 75% of the funds on payroll in order to be eligible for loan forgiveness. This threshold has been lowered to 60% from that 75%. Now there was some confusion because originally the language of the bill would have changed it so that if you didn't make that 60% threshold, your loan was completely non-forgivable. This was changed in the final version of the bill, and even if you don't manage to hit this threshold, your loan may still be partially forgivable, just not fully forgivable. Now additionally, the period of time that you have to spend this money was increased from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. New borrowers getting these loans now can have up to 24 weeks to spend the funds in order for that loan to be eligible for forgiveness. However, there is a caveat to this, which is that the funds have to be spent by the end of the year. The funds must be used by December 31st, 2020 in order to be eligible for the loan forgiveness under the current rules. Now, last but not least, the last basic detail you need to be aware of is that new borrowers can take their loan for up to a 5-year period. Originally, it was only supposed to be a 2-year period. Now, this is for new borrowers, but if you currently have a payroll protection loan and your lender is willing to agree to it, it is possible to extend the loan period from 2 years to 5 years. Now, if you're self-employed as a sole proprietor, I have some key information for you specifically. If you spend your PPP funds on things such as utilities or rent, you have to spend it on an expense that was eligible to deduct on your 2019 return in order for it to be a forgivable expense this year. That might sound a little bit confusing. Based on the language that's being used here, I would say that if you were newly renting an office this year, but you didn't rent that office the year before, you didn't have that rent write-off in 2019. Therefore, you can't use it as a forgivable expense for this PPP loan this year. Now, payroll protection loans are mainly centered around payroll. But if you're a sole proprietor, you more than likely don't have any payroll. So in order to make up for this, we have something called owner's compensation replacement. Your owner's compensation replacement is equal to your average monthly net income from 2019 multiplied by 2.5. So if your net income in 2019 was $120,000, that means your average net income was $10,000. So multiply that by 2.5, you have $25,000. That is the amount of your owner's compensation replacement in that instance. It's very important to remember here that we're talking about net income after expenses, not gross income or GCI. So make sure you're taking that into account when figuring this out. And again, likewise, this is based off of your 2019 tax return. Now, it's very well possible that your entire loan was based off of this. So the amount you received might have actually been your monthly average from 2019 multiplied by 2.5. And if that's the case and you're a sole proprietor, this means that this owner's compensation replacement makes up for the entire amount of your loan and it can be forgiven that way. But it's important to factor in the period of time that you're working with as well. If you had one of the earlier PPP loans and you're on an 8-week period, the rules may change for you. Now, the last thing I'll throw out to everyone before we wrap up this video is, depending on how you're getting your loan forgiven, it can be very important to document certain forgivable expenses. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to get your business organized, now's a really great time to do it. If you haven't seen my previous video where I recommend softwares for real estate professionals, QuickBooks Online is fine for about 80% of scenarios with real estate agents, brokers, and investors, and that's an effective way to get your information accurate, reconciled, and organized. So if you haven't put something like that in place yet, now's a great time to do that. You're going to want to have that specific reconciled documentation later on when you're applying for loan forgiveness. Additionally, the application for loan forgiveness for those who need it is available, so we're going to post a link to that below this video too. That's about going to wrap up this video. I'll see you in the next one.